Hello and welcome to the Cumbria Tourism Visitor Survey Q&A sponsored by the Cumberland. I'm Grant Seaton, Senior Business Lending Manager at the Cumberland. Now, since lockdown began, we've worked with about 900 of our hospitality business customers to provide support and relief throughout this unprecedented and toughest of times. And having seen the effect that the lockdown has had and the uncertainty of what the future will bring, we were so pleased to be approached by Cumbria Tourism to get involved with their visitor survey. Now, over 3,000 surveys were completed, which was absolutely amazing, and means we've got some really interesting insights to share with you. And that's in terms of best practices for reopening and considerations for marketing your business in the new normal, although I hate the phrase, the new normal. I'm really excited to delve into the findings with Helen Tate and Jill Haig of Cumbria Tourism. And they will be here to help us understand the results and how they can be used for planning for the coming weeks, months and years ahead. Helen is the Research Manager for Cumbria Tourism, and Jill Haig, I am sure you will all know as Managing Director of Cumbria Tourism. So, welcome guys.
Thank you.
We're going to delve straight into some pre-prepared questions, if that's okay. So I'll blind you with a stat that I've seen to start with over 80% saying that they think Cumbria is a safe place to visit, and 50% expecting to take more day trips and UK staycations over the next 12 months. It feels encouraging, I would say, that visitors do want to return to enjoy Cumbria soon. If I can come to you, Helen, first. Did you find overall results of the survey encouraging?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mixed bag. You know, we've got about half of the people that we spoke to saying they can't wait to take a trip and they're going to do that as soon as the restrictions allow. But then there's another 44% that are saying, I'm not going to go anywhere that I don't need to in the near future. So I think there are definitely mixed results, but on the whole, I would say definitely encouraging, because as a destination, I think we're in a really strong place. You know, our visitors feel that we are safe, that we're a welcoming destination. I think that in this instant, being a predominantly rural destination is a good thing. It's something that people are saying they would rather visit than a kind of an urban area. And so, yeah, I think lots of positives. I also think we have to be aware that things will change fairly quickly as things start to reopen, as measures start to be lifted. I think visitor attitudes and perceptions will change, and hopefully that will be for the better. And I also think that as a destination, we've got a really strong and loyal and sort of frequently repeating visitor market. And so certainly, even if there isn't a kind of a pent-up demand and an initial reaction and people wanting to come. I know certainly after foot and mouth disease in 2001, the year after that was one of the best years that we ever had, because those loyal visitors did come back, even if they waited a little while to do so.
Okay, yeah. I mean, on reading through the survey, I was really pleased to see the granular detail that was in there, and all really relevant stuff, all stuff that, you know, businesses that are based here in Cumbria can look at and can relate to. I wonder if you could maybe run us through some of the main headlines of what were in the report.
Sure, yeah. So we asked visitors a different series of questions. So we asked them about their trip taking in general, what they think they're going to do over the next 12 months. And then we asked them specifically about their attitudes to the Lake District and Cumbria, and, you know, what their perceptions, what their thoughts were about a potential visit. And then we went into a little bit more detail and asked people about the level of safety that they would feel on visiting a range of different places and locations, assuming that they're all following the latest guidelines. And then finally, we asked visitors about things that when they go to visit an attraction or an accommodation provider, things that they would expect to see, things that they would prefer to see, and then things that they actually would be not very happy to see. So I'll just go through those sort of at a broad level.
Yeah, be good.
So in terms of attitudes to the Lake District in Cumbria, I get lots of reassuring feedback. 94% of people think that a visit here would improve both their physical well-being and also their mental well-being. And that builds on previous research that we've undertaken that says the same. So people that have been through lockdown and have found it very difficult, have been stressed, you know, this is the perfect place to come and sort of recuperate and, you know, feel reinvigorated. We're also seen as a very welcoming destination. You know, 93% of people agree that the Lake District, Cumbria, is a welcoming destination, and 83%, as you've said before, feel that it's a safe place to be. And 9 in 10 people that we spoke to said that they would rather visit a rural location than a kind of a more urban or city location. So, you know, lots for us to be encouraged about. When we drilled down into some of the specifics, we found that there is more appetite for the quieter areas, and some people would prefer staying in more remote locations, but that's not the case for everybody. And actually, the people that would rather do that, they're outweighed by people that say, actually, no, it doesn't matter to us. So there's appetite for all forms of accommodation, self-catering and serviced accommodation, and even appetite for serviced accommodation with limited facilities, those that might not have a spa open, they might not have bars and restaurants running to usual capacity. And although, again, some people said they would rather wait and make their visit when everything's open again, there are more people that say, actually, no, we'd be happy to come and visit even when not all those facilities are open and available to us. I know we're going to look at a little bit later again the kite mark scheme, but people were very very positive about there being some kind of accreditation. So a business could go through an accreditation that says, yes, they're sort of COVID-19 safe, and lots of people feel that that would make them feel more reassured about visiting that particular business. When we looked at a different range of places and the levels of safety that people felt visiting them, again, probably results along the lines that we would have expected. So we would perhaps expect that people are going to feel safer in outdoor and open environments, but I think a reassurance that it wasn't perhaps to the levels that we might have anticipated. So we've got over 90% of people saying they would feel safe visiting outdoor places like forest parks and gardens, also feeling safe visiting our villages, and also feeling safe using self-catering accommodation. But it doesn't stop there. So 87% said they would feel safe visiting small towns. And then 3/4, 76%, said they would feel safe in shops. And bear in mind that these results were analysed a couple of weeks ago, and now that retail is open more widely and people can see that and they can see the safety measures in place, I would imagine that that will only increase and more people will say that that's something they'd be happy to do. And then when we look at hotels, guest houses and B&Bs, again, about 70% of people said, yeah, I would feel safe using those kind of facilities, as well as using visitor attractions that have got perhaps both indoor and outdoor facilities. And then when it comes to food and drink, 63% said they'd feel safe visiting restaurants, visiting cafes. When it comes to things like the larger towns and cities and pubs and indoor attractions, there are fewer visitors saying that they would feel safe visiting those areas, but it's still just over half. So still, I think, something quite positive to take from that. Moving on to what we asked visitors in terms of what they would expect to see, there were really, really clear results. So in terms of expectations, 80% of visitors would expect to see regular cleaning and operation. So not just to be told that it's happening, but actually physically see people doing it is going to be reassuring for them. 70% would expect to see hand sanitizer stations. And about 2/3 said they would expect to see social distancing signage or rules being widely displayed and advertised. And about half of our visitors expect to see limits on visitor numbers. And I think that's partly because they recognise that that might be the safest way for a visitor attraction perhaps to open. That's something that they are expecting. We asked about face masks, and opinions a bit more divided on that, and again that may change slightly as the rules change, because now we've got face masks being worn, being compulsory on public transport, people might start becoming more familiar to doing that. But when we asked 2 things. We asked about how they felt about staff being in face masks and how they felt themselves being in face masks. And it was there was a real mix. It was, maybe a quarter of them said, yeah, I would expect to see that. But then another quarter said, well, I'd prefer to see that. And perhaps another quarter said, I just don't know. So, slightly more confused picture with that. What we did then is we looked at the results of what people said they'd prefer to see and what they would expect to see. And again, it's really clear, like pretty much everybody wants to see regular cleaning, wants to see hand sanitizer stations, wants to see social distancing signs and rules. There's also a proportion that would want to pay by cashless payments only, and about 77% said they would expect or prefer pre-booking times. So like we were talking before we started recording about times set perhaps in restaurants or for breakfast, that kind of thing, that's something that people are kind of anticipating will happen. I think that's probably quite a good overview for now.
No, that's good. And I guess it shows the variation and the diverse offering of Cumbria when you look at that, and the various different attractions and locations that they can go to. And it's really, really positive to hear that it's a high percentage would look at everything.
Yeah.
So I guess across the board, you've got to assume that there's people there that would sample all those different areas as well. So that's good from a local economy point of view, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's more information in the full report about individual markets and where there are differences perhaps by the age of the visitor, or whether somebody was a very regular visitor, or family groups. There is a bit more information about how they feel slightly differently.
Excellent. So I'll maybe turn to Jill with this one. Jill, how could businesses in Cumbria use this survey to plan their marketing going forward? So both in terms of targeting, but also messaging as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, in lots and lots of different ways actually. We've done a marketing webinar, which actually I think anybody who's watching this, it'd be really useful to hop across and have a look at the marketing webinar, because that talks you through your pre-marketing, so how you get people ready and thinking about coming, and all those things that Helen's just described about what people are expecting to see from your business are actually now part of your marketing messaging. So there was another webinar, loads of webinars. There was another webinar that was led by Jen Cormack and Dan Visser a couple of weeks ago. It's also available, talking about how businesses were preparing. And one of the things that we were saying, or they were saying as part of that, was that it's safety in a way, in a way that normally we would look to come to an area like ours, and we'd be looking for experiences, we'd be looking for an amazing place to eat and drink, we'd be looking for fun things to do with the family. We're still looking for all those things, but predominantly we're looking for you, the business, to tell us that we, the visitor, are safe. So just start using that when we talk about the accreditation scheme in a minute. Start using that and building it into your marketing, but also using those messages about safety, about great open door spaces, like you say, Grant, about the opportunities to get off the beaten track. There's a toolkit that's on the CT, the cumbriatourism.org resource hub for people that are marketing. We've developed our campaign, which is going to run over 18 months, and that's just been shared with businesses. We've developed that very much with Helen's research that the Cumberland have kindly sponsored in mind. So when you see the campaign images, they're very much about encouraging people to rediscover new places that they've been to previously, but haven't been to for some time, to use the opportunities and the landscape and the environment to reflect, reflect on the environment, but reflect on the period that we've all just crazily been through, to recharge ourselves, but also to reconnect with friends and family, and with the place that we love. So I would really encourage people to go to the toolkit and download those free assets and use them in your marketing materials, because the more of us that use that, the more that will resonate with visitors and give confidence. And it's built on the foundations of this fantastic research resource. I think that the other thing I'd say to you is make sure that All of your website and marketing materials are up to date. Make sure you're listing on CT. New website, beautiful new website, are up to date. And don't be afraid to market, not just for now, but for the winter and going into spring as well, because actually what Helen was saying at the beginning is that about half our audience don't feel confident yet, but as they see that first half coming through, they'll start to feel confident. We know as well that people are expecting to take more frequent breaks as well, so start getting those bookings ready for later in the year, and even in spring next year, selling vouchers. There's so much that you can be doing now. And as a word of comfort, really, from Cumbria Tourism's perspective, fair to say in the last 2 weeks we've seen a real big surge in terms of demand for our materials. So our holiday guide, for example, big increase, 10% increase in our database. So there's definitely that demand is coming through. So now is the time to be going out there. But safety, whether you call it safety or not, but showing what you're doing to look after people and give them a fantastic experience is key.
That's really interesting to hear that your database is increasing as well, because through I believe there was some other research done over a weekend pretty recently where it was seen how many people were first timers to the Lake District in Cumbria as well, and I believe that was quite a high response, was it? We've seen quite a lot of new visitors.
Yeah. It was a really small sample, and I think some of that data isn't quite in context. But you're right. There was something like, I think it was something like 19% of visitors were new visitors, and we've definitely seen some of that. These are people who perhaps previously were going shopping somewhere, or a football match, or abroad. And obviously Wales has been closed and Scotland's been closed, so that's given us an opportunity to showcase ourselves, and the hope is that those people will want to stay and come back again. And certainly from our perspective, we are looking now at how we target our marketing to some of those audiences. Our campaign particularly looks at millennials, so we've struggled in the past as a county to increase our ratio of younger people. And of course they're so important because they're tomorrow's and the next year's and the next year's visitors, and then they come with their families and continue coming, because our visitors are loyal. They come back time and time again. So if young people can't get abroad, can't get to do some of the things they would normally like to do, this is a brilliant opportunity for them to come and discover, to reinvigorate, and to get together with friends and family, and really get to know us, love us, and become tomorrow's loyal visitors.
Good. Yeah, that's excellent. Now, we touched on the kite mark scheme before, and I believe Visit England have got plans around this. So I wonder if you could maybe give us a bit of an update on about Visit England's plans to develop a quality mark scheme, what it would involve for businesses, and who are interested in becoming accredited.
Okay, yeah, happy to do that. So there was a point about 6 weeks ago where I think every DMO was thinking, shall we develop an accreditation scheme? And we're really grateful that Visit England have said, actually, do you know what? We'll help, and we'll produce a national scheme which will be much more familiar and easily recognisable to everybody, no matter where you're from. We're hoping that we're expecting that scheme to be announced alongside the government guidance that's long awaited. Hopefully by the time some people see this webinar, this video, they will actually have that guidance and indeed the detail of the accreditation scheme. But in really simple terms, as CT will work with businesses and help you to do this, but you'll need to go onto the Visit England portal. You'll need to answer a series of questions, and they're likely to be the things that you've already done to demonstrate that you are looking after your visitor. And then you will get an accreditation mark, which you will be able to use as part of your marketing outwardly. But equally, as visitors arrive, they'll be able to see that, and that sort of embeds that sense of reassurance. As I say, it will be national. There'll be a marketing budget that Visit England will use to market that scheme. So there'll be great awareness of it, and people will be looking for it. It's free. So there's no cost to you as a business to do it. And my advice to you would be, do it as soon as it's available. Do it add it into your marketing materials. If you can badge it up, if you're an attraction, you can badge it up, do that, and let people know how proactive you've been.
It sounds like a great idea and good advice. Thanks for that, Jill. One other aspect to pull out of the survey is there appears to be a bit of a mixed feedback on those willing to pay more to support hard-hit businesses, so within their tariff and their costs, and those others expecting discounts. So I wonder how businesses should use that data to then plan their pricing strategies going forward.
That's a really interesting one. We have had quite a lot of discussion with members about this, and again, I thought Dan Visser answered it really well on the webinar around recovery, because there's a lot of additional cost here for businesses. Putting in these additional measures costs, and we know that at the moment, because of social distancing, businesses can't take anywhere near the normal volume, or most can't. So there's a real sort of edge there to viability, and I think it has to be a decision for individual businesses to take. But actually, what you're doing is you're delivering extra as a business. You're not just doing what you normally do. You're delivering added value, and you're enabling that safe visit. So I think carefully about that. As a business, I think demand is going to be there. It might be a little bit slow to take off until people are absolutely certain we're open, and they're absolutely certain it's safe to come. But I think that in the busy summer months, I would hope, or what's left of them, I would hope that businesses will be able to stay near enough what they would normally charge. But what we want to do here, Grant, is we want to make sure that this isn't just something that's happening during July, August, September, October. We want this to go right the way through the season. And there may be some opportunities there to look at perhaps reducing prices. But I would say, you're doing more. It's costing you more. There's a premium to that. And if you package that right and sell that right to your customer, there should be an appreciation of that.
Yeah.
I think as well that's kind of backed up by some of the business research that we did, because we asked about pricing and what businesses were planning to do, and the majority, I think it was about 78%, said they were going to keep their prices the same. Like you say, some of them are actually offering additional facilities and additional services, but I think they've got to also think long term and think, if we drop prices now, how is that going to look in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, when we don't want to do that going forward. So I think most people are thinking that that's what they're going to do. But like you say, sometimes it's the way that that's packaged and sold that makes the difference.
I guess there's certainly a supply and demand thing there, and it's the unknown at the moment as to how quickly people will return and in what sort of levels. So it's maybe a chance for business to start think about some form of flexible pricing to allow for that. Now, I know that's not in everybody's favour to be able to do that, and people might not be used to doing that type of pricing matrix. But there's clearly there's a lot of guidance out there of how to go about that, and potentially you're not going to reduce costs down to the point where you're not looking to make a profit. But once you start to see business start to filter through, clearly that's the point where you're seeing the demand increasing, and then the price can then reflect that. So have you got any thoughts on that at all, or have you come across that with people asking about flexible pricing matrices or anything?
Not a great deal. I think some of it's going to be a little bit suck it and see, isn't it? So, Windermere Lake Cruises have just announced this week that they're going to reopen their self-drive, the little boats. And they're offering to do a webinar with us next week for some of their learning. Now, I don't know, but I don't imagine that they're lowering their prices to do that. It'd be really interesting to see what the demand is, and I think I think every business has got to work out what's right for them. I really do. But as Helen says, the majority of businesses are not planning to do that, and in a way that's helpful, because if you're not being undercut by competitors, that helps you to sustain your prices. But I think some of this is going to just be a little bit suck it and see.
I think as well, there's a couple of other factors to consider, and one is that the market we have here in the Lake District in Cumbria is a fairly affluent market, and they're probably potentially one of the least likely to have been hit in terms of household finances. So that's a positive. But the other thing that is coming through from some of the national research is that some of the family groups are the ones that are most going to, saying that they want to go out and visit an attraction, have a day out. And I think that's a little bit to do with lockdown and, children not being at school. And I know, just thinking about my own circumstances, in a normal year, we would have done things in the Easter holidays, and we would have done things at half term. And so perhaps we've not spent on those occasions, and perhaps that will give us a little bit more disposable income when things do open up to be able to go out and do those things.
And the flip side of that, of course, is, because they're great points, but the flip side of that, of course, is we were just talking about the new markets and the millennials. We also, don't know what's going to happen further down the line in terms of when furloughing ends, what impact that's going to have. We know that there's a recession coming. So, do you know what, Grant? It's a great question, but it's so complicated, isn't it? And I genuinely believe that it's going to be a little bit suck it and see, and individual businesses are going to be able to work out what's best for them. But I guess it's useful to know that 78%, Helen, I think I'm right in saying, are at the moment saying we're going to hold. And I think that's valuable.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I guess one final question, and this one will go to both of you if that's okay. Take it in turns, don't fight over it. So to finish, if you businesses could take one nugget out of this survey report that they could really utilise, which one would that be?
I'm going to let Helen go first.
Go on, Helen.
I think, I don't know if I've just got one, actually. I think if I was made to pick one, I would say information is key. You cannot tell people enough about what you are doing to keep them safe, whether that's when they're just browsing for information, or before a visit, or during a visit, that. So if I had to pick one, but if I wasn't forced to just pick one, I would probably say, stay strong. There's lots of positives. Innovate if you can. Listen to your customers. But yeah, back to my original point, talk to them more. Tell them about what you're doing.
Excellent.
And yeah, I mean, obviously I would have said exactly the same as Helen. But what I would say is, use the information that is there. Just analyse it, use it, make it work for you. There's some brilliant information in there. I think there's a lot to take confidence from, and I think you as a business, I know how hard businesses have been working and preparing. You're already brilliant at what you do. You already do risk assessments. You're adding value here. Be really confident about what you're doing, and go out and tell people, and make the most of what you can of what's left of the summer. And my other thing is, think ahead. Think ahead. Think about what you're going to do in the late autumn, what you're going to do to market for Christmas and into the spring of next year. So it's not just about now, it's about longer term. Sorry, that was much more than one.
No, that is clearly more than one each. However, we will let you off because it was all very useful. Jill, Helen, that has been amazing. We thank you so much for joining us and to talk through an extremely important survey that you produced, which has been excellently executed as well, Helen. Well done. I'm sure with everybody pulling together in the right direction, the industry will recover from this, and hopefully in an even stronger position than before. And I think, Jill, me and you have spoke about that on a couple of occasions now, that hopefully this is a chance to come back even stronger. That is all from our Cumbria Tourism Visitor Survey Q&A. Should you wish to receive a copy of the survey, Cumberland customers can do so by contacting your relationship manager, and Cumbria Tourism members can access the survey through the members area of the website. So thank you to everybody for joining us.
And thanks to the Cumberland for all your support. Thank you so much.